Good afternoon and welcome back to Track D, which is the leadership and management track focused on outfitting for whitewater. My name is Rebecca Jones. I'm honored to be the director of the LEAD Institute that is sponsoring this track and tomorrow's, and also the LEAD Lounge in the Tiki Bar after the sessions end. And I'm going to turn it over to Haley McCullough, who has a fabulous program in place for you. Haley.
Awesome. Thanks, Rebecca. Just going to share my screen here. All right, let's get this set up. Okay. So hi, everyone. Welcome to our session. I hear many of you were in a worldly mindset this morning with the sessions that were offered. We are a panel of LEAD graduates here to talk to you today about Mintzberg's 5 managerial mindsets, which is one of the guiding principles of the LEAD program. Feel free to check our speaker bios for more information after we have quite a number of speakers here, so we're not going to do individual introductions. So this is going to be a traditional presentation where we each go over the 5 different mindsets in a totally normal way. Just kidding. Welcome to Mintzberg's Managers Matchmaking Game, where we pair eligible managers with one of Mintzberg's 5 magical mindsets. Today, our eligible manager is Barbara Gordon, a plucky library manager from the city of Gotham who is determined to lead with passion and confidence. Barbara enjoys wearing capes, fighting crime, and taking her bicycle out for a spin on the weekends. So welcome to the show, Barbara. For those of you in the audience who are new to the show, the way our game works is simple. We're going to meet each of Mintzberg's mindsets and pose a hypothetical situation to see how they would respond. After we've heard from all of the mindsets, Barbara will select her perfect match and skip off into management bliss. So let's get started. First up, we have Mintzberg mindset number 1, reflective. Reflective, could you please tell us a bit about yourself?
I'd love to. I love the reflective mindset. It means we take deliberate time to stop and think about what's happening in our libraries, with our staff, and with ourselves. Slowing down to reflect can pay huge dividends in how we make decisions and how we show up for ourselves and others because it gives us some breathing room. It's about looking at our own reactions to situations, what's happening for me, and also taking the time to look outside ourselves, what's happening for others. Mintzberg characterizes reflection as both a mirror and a window because it allows us to see ourselves and then to use that reflection to turn our attention back to our organization. Mintzberg states that reflection is that space suspended between experience and explanation where the mind makes the connections. When we use this mindset, we can understand what is happening in our organizations better and how we could respond if only we would slow down and reflect. The other phrase I like to keep in mind is that reflection is a way to open up a space for imagination. It also keeps you from assuming you know what's really going on. I don't know about you, but my dad always had a funny saying that he used to teach me how to spell assume. Being reflective gives you some breathing room before you assume. I've always been a bit of a dreamer and I love stories, so reflection comes naturally to me as a way for me to look at all the stories present in our libraries and at my own story as it connects to others. I have also learned to use reflective practice as a way to gain perspective on my actions and interactions at work. Slowing down to gain perspective is key. I hope I've shown how fabulous this mindset is. Pick me, Barbara.
Wow, thank you for painting such an incredible picture of your self-reflective, or should I say a mirror? Pause for laughter. Oh, I wasn't supposed to read that, sorry. Anyway, we have a question for you now, a bit of a hypothetical. You are the acting chief librarian, and there has been an increase in the number of complaints you are receiving about drug use and problem behavior outside of the library. The local paper has even published letters to the editor from people who are not comfortable using the library because of what they see. How would you respond?
Wow, as I read through the letters and think about the complaints, I would think about my first reaction, which is the pressure to act, to do something. High stress time, especially as the acting chief librarian. So how can I use reflection to slow myself down? I would start asking myself some questions. Do I have all the information to understand what's going on outside the library? Who else do I need to talk to in my organization or my municipality to understand the impact of the behavior that's happening outside the library and that impact on the staff inside the library and the patrons wanting to use the library? Are there statistics, stats, or data I can review to see what's happening over time? How am I feeling about this situation? This is a tough one. Some of you might be familiar with Driscoll's model of reflection, a set of questions to help guide reflective practice. I could use Driscoll's what to help frame my thoughts on the situation. So what does this look like? What? What is happening outside the library? What are all the things? So what? How can I analyze these events and these happenings? And once I've analyzed them, now what? What do I do with my reflection and my analysis? How can I use the what, so what, and now what to help me decide what to do? I could bounce ideas off a colleague. And in short, I could make my decision by slowing down enough to reflect on the past and my existing understanding of the situation to help me assess the present and make a plan to act.
Well, thank you for sharing your thought process with us, Reflective, and good luck. Our next mindset is a real team player. Welcome to the show, Collaborative. Please tell us about what makes you tick.
Oh, what makes me tick? Well, honestly, it's getting to know people and what makes them tick. I like to spend time getting to know my supervisor, my staff, and all the people I work with in my organization and beyond. Why? I find it helpful to understand the positive energy in people. What do you care about? What motivates you? I try really hard to listen. Tell me more is my favorite thing to say. I want people to feel heard. When I listen, my brain is definitely already going. I'm thinking, what are our shared goals? How might we each have a part here in getting it done? I gotta tell you, the best ideas come from asking and listening. I do not have to come up with the ideas or solutions by myself. You'll definitely see me out on the floor of the library with my staff. I do need to work side by side with them, especially when we're rolling out things like new services. I want to see what the customer is experiencing too. Especially important anytime I'm working with colleagues from different departments, different areas, when we're working on creating things like new services.
Wow, it sure sounds like your boots on the ground. So here's your scenario. Your library is hosting an event that has attracted a lot of negative and positive attention. You and your staff are committed to proceeding with the event, and it's up to you to address the controversy around it. What approach do you take in deciding what to say about the library moving forward with the event?
Okay, that's a tricky one. I'm definitely going to pause and I'm going to take a moment to map out for myself who's involved and who is affected. You can call it stakeholder mapping. It doesn't have to be overly complicated or onerous, but if I'm considering all the who's, I'm going to have a strategy to address everyone. I'm going to put my energy into how to best engage with each of them. Who do I need at the event too? Do I need our city councilor? Is there an opportunity for me to invite community and cultural leaders? I'm going to craft my message to each group, the yays and the nays, because I've thought about who I need to engage and maybe even consult. I need to present the goals of the event and our role in it very clearly. Whenever I use this approach, there's always someone who comes up with something I might not have thought of first. You know what? That's what can lead to some really beautiful partnerships, collaborations, and new ideas.
Well, it sounds like you've mapped out a great answer. Thanks for telling us about that, Collaborative, and best of luck to you. Mindset number 3 is a real fan of putting things under the microscope. Welcome to the show, Analytical. Can you please tell us some fun facts about yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you. Speaking of fun, Barbara, I would say that my fundamental quality is curiosity, as you can see from the slide in front of you. As a kid, I was famous for taking things apart, anything I could get my hands on, especially electronic and mechanical stuff. I wanted to discover each unique part, how it moved independently, and then how they all fit together. At home, my bookshelf is full of nonfiction, DIY home improvements, and pop sci, organized by topic. So it's not surprising that when I became a librarian, I gravitated towards cataloging and collections. I now work in a large public library, and I look after all aspects of collections, from selection and maintenance to distribution. So I'm managing a number of highly specialized teams of various sizes. So really what I strive to do is ensure that all the teams have a clear understanding of what each member contributes, which is a key aspect of Mintzberg's analytic mindset. Together, we're always searching for the best and most efficient way to deliver our services to customers, both internal and external. It's a complex yet beautiful alignment of skill sets, inputs, processes, and measurable outputs. I am a details person, but I still remind myself to keep an open mind and be curious about investigating new approaches. This job is a great fit with my analytic mindset.
Well, thank you for that thorough self-analysis analytical. Here's the hypothetical situation we've selected for you. Your library shelves are filled to the absolute brim with materials, and it's clear that a massive weed is going to need to happen. What factors do you consider when weeding the material, and how do you justify it to those who believe libraries should never get rid of anything ever?
Thank you for that question. Well, as usual, when I'm faced with a complex and challenging situation, I really try to break it up into manageable chunks. So factors that I would consider when weeding material are found in our collection maintenance policy, such as regularly reviewing materials based on physical condition, accuracy, relevance, all those things, diversity, importance to the community, and subject area gaps. That said, as important as the analytics and reports are, I'm always careful to involve my teams and make sure we all have a shared understanding of the problem and the way forward. It will be a big weeding project, but with a clear division of labor, we can get it done in a timely fashion and hopefully ensure we don't let materials build up so much in the future. As for justifying our efforts in weeding, we do see this happening more and more as libraries are facing intellectual freedom challenges and lots of questions about materials that we make available, especially to children and teens. So I think we would consider the audience that is questioning and provide statistics and stories that will be meaningful to them. For example, if it's a school board, we can outline our goal of providing student resources that are timely, accurate, relevant, and reflective of the diverse community. In a public library setting, it's super important to take a stand on intellectual freedom and be clear about our vision and values in making materials available to all for free. A library collection isn't static. It's always growing and changing and requires care, upkeep, and increasingly advocacy. Thank you.
That sounds very thorough analytical. Thank you for breaking all those factors down for us, and good luck to you. Our next mindset is a bit of a globetrotter and enjoys airplane food. Please welcome Worldly to the show. Worldly, it's so great to have you. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Of course. Hello, bonjour, konnichiwa. I'm Worldly, and in order to gain a better understanding of one's overall context, I like to familiarize myself with the individual experiences, the circumstances, both internal and external, the cultures and practices that make up the whole. I've been described as seeing the world made up of edges and boundaries like an intricate patchwork quilt. Understanding where and how those edges and boundaries interact, where they're located, and on occasion even rub up against one another is what I'm all about. In case you didn't guess already, my star sign is Gemini, the twins, as I like to hold a holistic and inclusive lens to a plurality of worldviews. It can be exhilarating, immersing oneself in a new situation and experiencing the different viewpoints to gain a deeper appreciation of the issue.
Well, how very cosmopolitan of you, Worldly. Thanks for sharing. Here's the scenario we've cooked up for you. You've been assigned a big project, one which would see an impressive piece of new and expensive technology in your library. However, the library's budget is very limited, so you must convince the higher ups that your project deserves funding. What steps do you take to ensure you're successful?
Oh, well, that's an interesting scenario. Context is everything for me, so I'd start by really trying to understand the landscape. Take a moment to reflect on the competing influences, sketch out a plan, examine the situation from different viewpoints, and develop data-driven and evidence-based stories and talking points to discuss the benefits, acknowledge the fears, and the risks and opportunities that this new technology presents. We also have to remember that there are costs involved. be they financial, social capital, or even efficiencies, in not taking the decision to fund the new technology at this time, and those risks should be communicated too. Communication is key, and it's helpful to use a tool such as the Power Influence Matrix to identify any key influencers and stakeholders and the necessary level of communication required to each of those groups. Making connections with my colleagues across the organization is natural for me, so I'd be hopeful that I'd know at least a few of the stakeholders before securing meetings with them and would have a rapport with them already. Active listening, clarifying questions, and curiosity are essential tools to deepen my understanding of this situation. I'd also look outside of my organization's network. I'd like to speak with the vendor. I'd contact colleagues at other libraries that have adopted the new technology, perhaps, just to discuss their experiences. I'd also consider if there are any natural partners or sources of external funding. At the end of the day, I'm relying on my understanding of the situation, the organizational context, the internal and external influences, and those folks involved to bring any and all synergies to the fore. This will allow me to communicate a well-rounded understanding of the benefits to my organization, the community, and the staff that this technological innovation would bring. Thank you.
Well, I certainly like the global thinking. Thanks for the answer, Rosalie, and best of luck. Our fifth and final mindset can be described as a bit of a firecracker who loves changing things up. Please welcome Action to the show. Action, it's great to have you here. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely, and hello, thanks for having me. Yeah, so pretty much just as it sounds, my mindset is all about acting and adopting change, adapting to change, and just getting things done. My mindset is always about working towards achieving objectives and making decisions that lead to concrete results. So having an action mindset for me involves executing plans and strategies effectively. It's about translating ideas into action, ensuring that plans are put into practice as efficiently as possible. Furthermore, my action mindset involves being responsive to changes in the external environment and requires the ability to adapt plans and actions in response to new information and shifting circumstances. My mindset involves identifying and addressing challenges and obstacles and requires a proactive approach to finding solutions and overcoming hurdles that inevitably arise. Ultimately, my approach to taking action comes down to actively driving and leading change initiatives. This means taking a proactive role in guiding the organization towards its goals and facilitating transformation.
Well, that's some pretty exciting stuff. Here's the action-packed scenario we selected for you. You've just accepted a new management position at your dream library, but a few weeks after starting your new job, you notice there's a lot of problems in multiple areas, from collections to programming. How do you go about solving them?
Yeah, so fun fact about me is that I thrive in the fast lane. I'm always eager to roll up my sleeve and dive in on new challenges. So like the scenario that you had, in my dream library, facing multiple challenges is an opportunity, not a setback. So first, I'd kick off a comprehensive assessment, meeting with my team right away to gather their insights. I would take this as an opportunity to also celebrate our achievements and honor what's been working well, paying full respect and recognition to our existing strengths and traditions, while also recognizing the opportunity to move forward, to prioritize issues, and acknowledge that change thrives best when it's paced and focused. So I would say in this particular case, my sense is that library programming, as evidenced at our library as the primary driver for key performance metrics, would likely take the lead in our prioritization. However, in having said that, we would take steps to confirm that hypothesis, even though I do want to move fast and go on from there. Now, simultaneously, I would seek out best practices from other libraries. I would tap into professional networks for fresh ideas. But here's the key. I understand that adaptability in change is crucial. Actively problem solving and overcoming obstacles along the way is absolutely imperative. So if it's evident to me that a change of course is necessary, I absolutely have the courage to make that call. Change is a dynamic process, as we all know, and in full embrace of that, I'm always ready to pivot when needed. And then last but not least, I strongly believe in hands-on leadership. So you'll find me right alongside my team, with my team, mobilizing efforts, implementing solutions, and ensuring that we're all on track together. Change is a team effort, and as you know, never happens the way you want it in a vacuum. So together, I always say we can turn triumphs challenges into triumphs, creating an evolving and thriving library experience for us and our community members.
Wow, that answer sure packed a punch. Thanks for sharing that with us. All right, so we've met all 5 of our mindsets now. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting some interference from the sound crew here. Oh, hey, I'm doing the presentation right. What? A 6th mindset, but the show? Okay, well, yes. Okay, but Mr. Mintzberg isn't going to like it. Well, you tell the network that I want an extra coffee break. I'm so sorry about that, folks. It would appear that we have one more mindset to meet. Please give a warm welcome to, what'd you say this guy's name was? Synthesis. Synthesis, hi, great to have you on at the last minute. That's so cool. Do you maybe want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Well, hello all. Hello, Barbara. I'm Synthesis. As new managers or mid-managers or late career managers experience the unexpected things that arise when one manages, it can often feel lonely. One can often feel adrift at sea as new things arise. And I'd like to say that I really loved Worldly's astronomical metaphor there, in the sense that Mintzberg provides a manager with a concise toolkit with which to address any problem that arises. We may walk through the bookstore in the How to Be a Great Manager section, or even be walking through our section in our libraries, looking for books on how to be the best manager in the world, or be the best manager you can be. But very rarely does a book honestly address the fact that most of the time, I'm just trying not to be a bad manager. So how does one not be a bad manager? Well, we take the toolkit that Mintzberg provides to us. So when I see the world, or when something arises that I need to address, I take my 5-pointed North Mintzberg star and spin it and look at the different mindsets that are available to me at this precise moment. I'm not embarrassed to say that sometimes I'm an emotional person. So when I spin to the reflective mindset, I might realize that my first reaction is going to be emotional. I know that about myself. So giving myself space to reflect, to look at the different mindsets, allows me to prepare for the work to come. I also realize that I'm not alone, that I do exist in a network of relationships, and I never really have to make a decision based on loneliness. I have colleagues, I have staff members on whom I can rely to provide me with insight into any situation that arises. When I look at the analytical point of the mindset, I can look at the network and systems in which I exist, in which my library exists, to discuss the type of things that need to happen. And I also realize that my library exists in the world, that there are competing interests, competing ideologies that I can map out, which then allow me to create the best plan possible for when it comes time for action. So if I've taken my 5-pointed star of abilities, really, a toolkit to allow me to be my best managerial self in any situation, I have a roadmap that I can create unique to me, using this 5-pointed star to guide me on the very rough seas of managing a library and people in today's world. So Barbara, if you choose me, we can explore what the sin in synthesis means.
Wow, well, it sounds like you quite certainly have yourself together. Fortunately, I have some extra scenarios here that I can pull from for you. Okay, this one sounds good. So synthesis, here's your scenario. A new influential group that has power over the library's budget has recently taken charge. This group has a very different idea of what libraries should look like and what they cost to operate. In short, the library's funding is in jeopardy. What do you do to save it?
First and foremost, as a half emotional person, I would pause and reflect. I call reflection the blood pressure test. And if someone is threatening the funding, which really threatens the viability, the people with whom I work, I'm going to have a reaction to that. So I would first pause and address and notice how I'm feeling in this situation. Second, I would go to my collaborative self and think about who are the other people in my network who may have already gone through issues such as this. I would reach out, I would call, I would email, I would Microsoft Teams them to say, what type of experiences have you had and how might this inform my actions in this situation? I would look at the analytical. I know this is hard to say for me, but what if there are cost-cutting measures my organization could take? I could look at how we're operating. I could look at what our balance sheets are. And if there is nothing to cut, and if we are running very smoothly, I then have more evidence take to any future conversation with me. I would look at the worldly situation and recognize this group exists, as the library does, within certain political and social realities. What are their concerns? What type of things are they interested in? And as a reflective, collaborative, analytical person, can I convey the message that I need to convey on behalf of the libraries to this group that exists in the world and be that translator to show them how we exist and why our work is important within those structures. And finally, I have action. After I've gone through the reflective, collaborative, analytical, and worldly processes, I am now equipped to make the best informed decision I can make on behalf of the organization, on behalf of people who work for that organization, to move forward and take action to address the concerns of this group. So that's what I would do.
Well, that's a pretty stellar answer. Thank you, Synthesis. Well, now that we've met all 5 or 6 of Mintzberg's mindsets, it's time to confer with our manager, Barbara, to see who her ideal managerial mindset is. Give me 1 second just to chat with Barbara here a little quick. So who do you like best? Yeah, I bet they do like pina coladas. That's a good point. Oh, are you sure? Okay. All right, thanks for your patience, everyone. I've checked with Barbara and I have her decision. The mindset that Barbara is going to utilize in their management journey is synthesis. It's clear that synthesis ticks all the right boxes and had a mix of all of the mindset qualities that would be ideal for management at any organization. Thank you to all the mindsets for coming out, and congratulations to Barbara on the 6th surprise unofficial mindset, synthesis. This has been Mintzberg's Manager's Matchmaking Game, and we'll open up a Q&A period to the audience now. Are there any questions?
Seriously, are there any questions? Really? Really? Well, I'll ask a question. When you were first introduced to various mindsets of management, be honest, what did you think? What was your reaction? Yeah. Go ahead, Synthesis.
I just wanted to gloat. No. No, I think that's a great question because, and let's be honest, the world is full of a lot of management speak and
Oh.
management techniques and tools. And if you just buy this product, you will have access to this knowledge. So I first came to the 5 mindsets with sort of that suspicion in the back of my mind. But the more and more we worked with the mindsets, I realized that it provides a focus that I think other types of activities don't. It's concise so that I'm not getting lost down various rabbit holes of thinking. And I have 5 things that address almost every aspect of any problem that might arise. So I went from suspicion to a great sense of empowerment when I first came across Mintzberg. And that was my journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, I can go. So for me, when I read it, and I know we had kind of discussed about how, a good manager has elements of all of the mindsets.
Mhm.
And so that's why I was kind of like, well, maybe we should do a 6 mindset that has all the elements together as one. And that's sort of where synthesis was born. So I hope Mintzberg doesn't try to sue me or anything for messing with his mindset formula. But I think that's where my brain went. It's like, well, let's just have a 6th one that has all the qualities.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to ask the audience this too. So that this includes you. So type in the chat very honestly, what is your immediate mindset that clicks in for you? Like when something happens at the library, in the organization, whatever, which mindset clicks in? Is it looking at the context? Is it to take action? Is it to stop and do the blood pressure test? I love that, by the way. Where did that come from? Is it to, call, text somebody else? I want to have a little story for you there. Or is it to analyze the situation, get the facts and figures? So I know there's 29 people out there. Can you type in what your immediate reaction is?
I can, as people are responding, I will jump in because I noticed there's like a question that included analytic there or a comment. So I think for me, analysis was a little bit harder because I'm naturally collaborative is the first way I go. And I think it's interesting that you pointed out, communication is across the board. So that is, I think, if you can say like the warp and weft uses like a fabric metaphor, so that like runs through all the mindsets. And I think, yeah, you pointed out, analytical can start with communication, and then you have to be really careful you don't go down rabbit holes with analytic, right? You do have to remember, okay, at some point you got to stop, and then you got to go back and sort of make your decision and communicate. So I think that was a very astute observation there from the participant.
Right, from
Thank you for that.
unknown. Yes.
Yeah.
So that the one quality all mindsets had on one level or another is communication. I felt that analytical initiated communication, then set it aside, right? Right. And nobody put in what they're, oh, it depends on the situation. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you, Annapuma. You're the only one that stepped forward. Thank you so much. Collaborative.
I think we had
Okay.
somebody say collaborative as well.
Somebody said collaborative. Thank you. Thank you very much. Excellent. There's another collaborative reflective. I want to ask questions, get a temperature check from everyone. Oh, that was Lewis. And Lewis is coming into lead 6. Wonderful. My mindset is to take action. No question. Right? Yeah. Anybody else? Any other actions out there? Oh, yeah. There we go.
I feel like there's an overlap between the action mindsets, and we did the DISC profile when we were in our lead. And so the Ds and the action people, I feel like there's a bit of a
right, right. For me, action comes in second behind collaboration. Good for you, Richard. I wish I could say the same thing. Do you have any questions for each other? How was it coming together? Just so the audience knows, these are individuals, yes, who have been through the LEAD program, but they didn't all go through the same cohort. And so I was just delighted when I asked them if they'd like to talk about, because they had talked about mindsets in their reflective essays. I remembered that. And if they'd like to talk about it, whoa, they all wanted to talk about it. Fantastic. And it was the first time I remembered that Barbara Gordon, who of course is Batgirl, those pictures that I found of her in the days when we were watching Batman on television in color. It was the first TV program I ever saw in color. There she was, chief librarian of Gotham City Library. Who knew? Who knew?
Well, if I were to just add one thing, I'm one of those people who also tends to self-doubt, right? That yes, I may be attracted to one particular mindset over another. And that doubt only becomes more accentuated in management situations, because I'm not only speaking for myself, but I also may be speaking for an organization or for an area within an organization, which can be paralyzing, frankly. So having the mindsets is like I've never met a 5-pointed person, if I could phrase it that way, right? I might be a 1-pointed person or a 2-pointed person. Maybe you're a miracle and a 3-pointed person. And this 5-pointed star, I think, like I literally do have a poster that I think Sue made hanging up on my wall in my office, just to continuously remind me that of course I have blind spots. Of course I'm drawn to specific mindsets. But here are the things behind me that I can also now recognize and think about. So it's not only that I feel less lonely, I also feel less anxious, because the path is already there for me to follow when these situations arise. So if anyone has any anxiety, I think for me, this has been wonderful, because it takes all that down. I have that analytic path to follow every single time. And I think ultimately that's the power of Mintzberg, is nothing's left out. It seems simple, 5 points isn't that much in the grand scheme of things, but nothing's left out.
Yeah.
Just bouncing off what Matt said, you articulated that so well. Part of I would use the word comfort for me once I became really familiar with the 5 mindsets. And I'll use the fabric metaphor again, is just knowing that you're going to be weaving throughout them. You see the threads through all of them. And that was brought up by one of in the chat as well around the communication, but you start to see there's a comfort in that. Just kind of speaking to what Matt was saying.
There is.
I agree. And I think, when you become a manager, sometimes it's kind of terrifying, right? Because you get the imposter syndrome and it's like, should I really be here? Like,
are we going to be sued?
Oh my God, you picked me, really? So having a toolkit which allows us to reflect on our own skills, abilities, and deficiencies really makes us more powerful, not in the we have power, mwahaha, over an organization, but more powerful and effective in our roles. So I think that's the great value in Mintzberg too, is being able to go, okay, these are tools I can draw on to help me make a better decision, because sometimes as you move up in management, making a decision becomes more fraught, right? There's a lot more at stake.
Right.
So I think having a framework, a star to guide us, is a fabulous tool.
Right.
I think also, I just wanted to say too, in terms of the kind of, as you exercise those the various
Mm.
mindsets, there that comfort kind of becomes there, that Leanne mentioned as well. So it is kind of, you do have to practice and to kind of to remember to kind of to look at the 5 points of the star, as it were, and it almost becomes second nature when you actually, that you don't even realize you're doing it once you get to that point, which is gratifying.
Yeah, exactly. We do have a question from Richard. Thank you so much, Richard. Even though I was a tad critical about analytical compared to the others, did your mindsets change to more collaborative or action during the worldwide pandemic? Or did you feel you moved more towards one mindset or a different mindset at the time? This question goes for the others. Any change to mindset that differs from the one you identify with? Andrew, did I see you nodding?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the pandemic and how things shifted there individually for me and as an organization. I felt like we really had to shift to an action mindset and speed up our processes and change our services in a really short period of time. But I was just thinking again about what Matt shared and about really eloquently put, Matt, about the doubt and how these mindsets can help you through that doubt, sort through the doubt. And I find even in that situation, and even if you're over reliant or heavily reliant or exceptionally reliant on certain mindsets in a given time for a given situation, and I think that is necessary depending on the situation. I think a couple of people said that. You're still always hopefully bouncing between the different mindsets when you're bumping into that doubt, as you're like taking action, assessing, and then taking action again, reflecting, and collaborating and so on. So I do think that it shifts and changes what we rely on more heavily. At least it does for me, depending on the situation. But even in that, we're still, or at least in my experience, bouncing between the different mindsets to sort things out when we hit those obstacles. We're always gathering feedback. And so even if the reflection isn't prolonged and deep, I feel like, when you're a manager, you're constantly synthesizing information, and that kind of forces you, if you're right in the game, to bounce between the different mindsets.
Well, very articulate, Andrew. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you to everyone who is here, who stayed, who asked questions. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Haley, for pulling this together, and Sue. Sue is in a medical library. Matt is in a large academic library. Andrew and Leanne both work for Edmonton Public Library, large public library. Sarah works for the largest one in North America, which is Toronto Public Library, and Shelley with New Westminster in BC. Thank you so much. Haley, by the way, is in Alberta at Grand Prairie. Thank you so much, all of you, for the time and insights that you brought to this topic. It's the first time I've had people really delve into Mintzberg and Gosling, and I think it's a fabulous framework. Thank you so much, everybody. We will resume in 15 minutes for reflective journaling. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Amazing. Amazing.
Bye.